The morning sun streamed softly through the curtains of a small living room where Daniel sat with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, tugged gently at his sleeve, her wide brown eyes sparkling with hope. "Daddy, can we get ice cream later?" she asked, her voice a mix of sweetness and impatience. She was already dressed for the day, pink sneakers, butterfly print t-shirt, and the kind of energy that made Daniel smile despite the weight on his shoulders. He worked as an interior designer, running a modest company that was currently juggling 2 demanding projects. Deadlines piled up like bricks, and stress had long replaced sleep. Yet, looking at Lily's expectant face, he managed to smile. "Of course, sweetheart," he said. Her joy was immediate, a small hop, a squeal, and a quick hug before she dashed off to play. From the couch, his wife, Emma, barely looked up from her phone. The distance between them had grown so gradually that he hadn't noticed the silence, becoming their new normal. She smiled faintly when he glanced at her, but the smile faded as quickly as it appeared. That fragile peace didn't last. Over the following days, Lily developed a persistent cough. "Daniel, her cough isn't getting better," Emma said one morning, her tone carrying both worry and frustration. Daniel, half awake and brewing coffee, tried to sound reassuring. "I'll take her to the pediatrician tomorrow," he promised. Emma folded her arms. "That's what we said last week." The guilt stung. Work had consumed nearly every hour of his life, but Lily came first. The next day's appointment set off a series of visits, scans, and sleepless nights that ended with the doctor's grave words: Lily had a congenital abnormality pressing against her lung. Surgery was urgent. The number that followed, $120,000 up front, hit Daniel like a thunderclap. No insurance, no backup, no plan. In the hospital room, Daniel felt like the walls were closing in. Emma's voice trembled. "What are we going to do?" she asked, glancing at their daughter asleep under a tangle of 4 tubes. Panic and guilt mixed in Daniel's chest. "We'll find the money," he said, though the words felt hollow. His mind raced through savings, business assets, and favors. It wasn't enough. Then he thought of his parents, Martin and Linda, owners of a successful furniture store. They weren't billionaires, but the surgery cost was within their reach. He dreaded asking them, yet desperation outweighed pride. "I'll talk to my parents," he told Emma. She gave him a doubtful look. Both of them knew his parents favored his younger brother, Ryan. But they wouldn't turn their backs on their granddaughter, or so Daniel believed. Rain poured the evening Daniel drove to his parents' mansion. The driveway was crowded with luxury cars, laughter spilling through the glowing windows. Another party. He stepped inside to the sound of classical music and clinking glasses. His mother greeted him in a sequined dress, holding champagne. "Daniel, you're just in time for Ryan's pre-wedding celebration," she said brightly. He barely smiled. "Mom, I need to talk privately." Her expression stiffened. "Does it have to be now?" "It can't wait." Reluctantly, she led him to his father's study, where his father joined moments later. "What's so urgent?" his father asked, irritated. Daniel took a breath. "Lily's in the hospital. She needs surgery. It'll cost $120,000. His mother's eyes narrowed. "That's unfortunate. But all our money is tied up in Ryan's wedding." "What do you mean tied up?" Daniel asked, disbelief coloring his tone. His father sighed, checking his watch. "Everything's prepaid. The venue, catering, guests. It's non-refundable." Daniel stared at them, heart pounding. "You're telling me you can't help your granddaughter because of a wedding?" His mother's voice turned cold. "Don't be dramatic. There must be a payment plan or something." Daniel's voice cracked. "She could die." His father frowned. "Where's your insurance? Your savings?" Before Daniel could respond, Ryan appeared in the doorway, all smiles and arrogance. "What's going on?" he asked. His father waved him closer. "Your brother wants us to give him $120,000 for Lily's surgery." Ryan frowned in mock pity. "That's rough, man. But the wedding's next week. Everything's set." Daniel clenched his fists. "I'll pay you back every penny," he said. "Please." Ryan shrugged. "Sorry, bro. My obligations are to my fiancé. You'll figure it out." The words landed like knives. Daniel sank to his knees, tears stinging his eyes. "I'm begging you," he said. His mother hissed. "Stand up before people see you." Daniel glared up at her, his voice trembling with rage. Let them see. Let them see what kind of people you are, rich enough for parties, but too heartless to help your own granddaughter." His father's jaw tightened. "You're causing a scene." Daniel rose, his breath ragged. "I'll never forget this," he said, storming out into the rain, humiliation and heartbreak flooding through him. Emma's parents, in contrast, rushed to the hospital the moment they heard the news. They weren't wealthy, just simple, kind-hearted people. Emma's father paced the hallway. "How much do we need?" he asked. When Daniel told him, the man's face went pale but steady. "We'll manage," he said quietly. Within days, they sold their home, pooled savings, and helped raise the rest through friends and community members. Daniel was speechless when he learned what they had done. "You sold your house?" he whispered. Emma's father nodded. "For Lily, it's worth it." His throat tightened. Gratitude and shame crashed together. "I'll never forget this," he said, gripping the older man's hand. Their sacrifice gave Lily a second chance. Her surgery was a success. When the doctor finally said Lily would recover, Daniel broke down in tears beside her bed. Emma clung to her parents, sobbing with relief. For a while, everything else faded. The debts, the exhaustion, the anger. But peace was temporary. The surgery had saved Lily, but drained their finances entirely. Daniel threw himself back into work, desperate to rebuild what they'd lost. One night, while he was at a construction site, Emma called. "Are you coming home for dinner?" she asked. "I can't," he said. "I'm meeting a client." Her sigh was sharp. "Of course you are." The distance widened. Daniel thought he was working for his family. Emma thought he was running from it. Over time, their conversations turned brittle. Emma's words carried exhaustion, and Daniel's replies carried defense. "You're never here," she said one night. "You think I want to be gone?" he shot back. "I'm keeping us afloat." She gave a bitter laugh.
Right.
"Like my parents kept Lily alive when yours wouldn't lift a finger." The jab cut deep. Daniel's patience snapped. "That's not fair." "Neither is feeling like a single parent while my husband hides behind work," she said. They ended the call in silence, a silence that grew heavier by the day. Somewhere between hospital bills and broken trust, love had slipped quietly out the door. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds when Daniel noticed Emma standing in the living room, her phone buzzing repeatedly in her hand. She turned her back as he entered, thumbs flying over the screen. "Who's that?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "A friend," she replied too quickly. He frowned but said nothing. Days passed, and he began to notice patterns. Hushed calls, sudden laughter that died when he entered a room, messages she deleted instantly. When she sat at her laptop and he walked by, she'd switch tabs so fast it looked rehearsed. Daniel told himself it was stress, paranoia, exhaustion. Anything but betrayal. He was too drained to face another storm. Yet one afternoon, the truth began to peek through cracks he could no longer ignore. His old friend Jonas dropped by Daniel's office during lunch. Jonas, a broad-shouldered man with an easy smile, had been his buddy since high school. "Hey man," Jonas said, settling into a chair. "How's Emma holding up?" Daniel sighed. Distant. "But maybe that's normal after all we've been through." Jonas scratched the back of his neck. Has she been talking to Trevor lately? You know, your other college friend?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "Trevor?"
No.
"Why?" Jonas hesitated. "I saw them at a cafe 2 days ago. Looked close. I figured you knew." Daniel forced a weak laugh. Probably just catching up. But the words tasted like rust. After Jonas left, Daniel sat in silence, heart thudding. Emma and Trevor. Together. The thought gnawed at him like acid. He shook it off, convincing himself he was imagining things. But the unease stayed. While Daniel's marriage frayed, another collapse brewed elsewhere, his parents' empire. News spread about how Martin and Linda had refused to help their dying granddaughter. A journalist published the story under the headline, "Local Entrepreneurs Choose Wedding Over Granddaughter's Life." It exploded across social media. Clients canceled contracts. Former friends distanced themselves. Their furniture store emptied out. Ryan's grand wedding turned into a public embarrassment. Guests withdrew, and whispers filled every corner. When Daniel read the story, he felt no joy, only cold justice. "They made their choices," he muttered. But for Emma, the fallout stirred something deeper. Resentment not just toward his parents, but toward the world they represented. One night, Emma threw a glossy magazine onto the table, its front page screaming, "From fame to shame, the Martins fall from grace." Her eyes flashed. "They talk about your parents like they're villains," she said, "but it's not just them, Daniel. It's the whole toxic mess." He looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" "This family," she said sharply. "Your parents despised us. You're always gone, and I'm left to hold everything together alone." Daniel rubbed his temples. "Emma, I'm trying. I'm out there killing myself to rebuild what we lost. And while you rebuild," she snapped, "I crumble." The air between them vibrated with anger. "I'm doing this for us," he shouted. "Better than doing nothing at all," she retorted bitterly. The argument ended with slamming doors and silence that rang louder than any scream. Weeks later, Daniel finished a client meeting early and decided to surprise his family. He parked quietly and unlocked the front door. From the hallway, faint laughter echoed, a man's laugh. Daniel froze. It wasn't his own. He crept forward, pulse hammering, and recognized the voice instantly. Trevor. A cold dread crawled up his spine. He followed the sound to the bedroom door, slightly ajar. Through the gap, he saw Trevor half-dressed, leaning over Emma, her bare shoulders visible beneath tangled sheets. Daniel's world stopped. His breath came shallow, his vision tunneling. Then, fury took over. He pushed the door open hard enough to make it slam against the wall. "What the hell?" he roared. Trevor and Emma froze, their faces drained of color. Trevor stumbled for words. "Daniel, wait." But Daniel lunged before he could finish. He grabbed Trevor by the collar, dragging him off the bed like a rag doll. "You bastard!" Daniel shouted, shaking with rage. Emma screamed, clutching the sheet around herself. "Daniel, stop." But Daniel barely heard her. "In my house? In my bed?" His voice cracked with pain. Trevor tried to push him off, stammering, "It's not what it looks like." Daniel's laugh was pure madness. "Then what is it?" He dragged Trevor by the leg down the hallway, knocking over a lamp. "Get out of my house," he bellowed. Rain lashed against the windows as he yanked the front door open and shoved Trevor outside, half naked and drenched. "Touch my wife again, and I'll kill you," Daniel growled. Trevor stumbled into the rain, clutching his clothes, his face pale with terror. Emma stood barefoot in the doorway, soaked tears running down her cheeks. "How could you?" Daniel's voice trembled, broken between rage and disbelief. "With him? In my bed?" Emma's lips quivered. "You never looked at me anymore, Daniel. You were here but not really here. I was invisible to you." "Don't you dare twist this," he shouted. "I worked myself sick to save this family." She let out a hollow laugh. "Save it? My parents saved Lily, not yours. You think long nights at the office fix what's already broken?" Daniel clenched his fists, shaking. "You betrayed me. And you abandoned me," she fired back. Their words collided like thunder, neither willing to yield. Daniel's voice rose to a roar. "You slept with my friend because you felt lonely?" Emma's tears came harder. "You don't understand. I was drowning, Daniel. Every day, alone in this house, with the ghosts of hospital bills and your parents' cruelty. Trevor listened when you wouldn't. You think that excuses this?" he spat. "You think that justifies you throwing away everything we built?" She stood trembling, clutching the sheet tighter. "I'm not justifying anything," she whispered. "I'm just explaining how I broke." For a long, heavy second, neither spoke. The rain outside beat harder, filling the silence. Finally, Daniel said in a hollow voice, "Pack your things. You're leaving tonight." Emma's breath hitched. "What about Lily?" Lily deserves better than this, he said, his voice cracking. That evening, Emma left. The house felt colder than ever, too big, too quiet, too broken. Daniel sat alone in the living room, the echo of her sobs still haunting the walls. He stared at the empty space where family pictures once hung and whispered, "What happened to us?" Days blurred into nights. Work became his only refuge. When Jonah stopped by and found him surrounded by empty whiskey bottles, Daniel told him everything. Every scream, every betrayal. Jonas listened quietly, eyes heavy with sympathy. "Man," he said softly, "I never thought she'd do that." Daniel's laughter was bitter. "Neither did I." Jonas leaned back. "So, what now?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Divorce," he said. "There's nothing left to save." A week later, Daniel's phone rang late at night. He glanced at the caller ID and froze. "Mom." His first instinct was to hang up, but something made him answer. "Daniel," came his mother's trembling voice. We need your help." He almost laughed. "That's funny," he said coldly. "I needed yours once too." She sighed heavily. "Please listen. The business is collapsing. We're about to lose the house. Ryan's marriage is over, and the bank wants $200,000 to stop the foreclosure. We have nowhere else to turn." Daniel clenched his jaw. "You refused me when Lily was dying," he said. "And now you want me to rescue you?" His mother broke down into sobs. "We know we were wrong, but you're the only one who can save us. We're family." Daniel let out a humorless chuckle. "Family? You taught me what that word doesn't mean." Then, after a pause, he said, "Meet me at my office tomorrow, 2 p.m. sharp." He hung up, staring blankly into the darkness. The next afternoon, Martin and Linda arrived at Daniel's office, looking smaller than he remembered, fragile, nervous, stripped of pride. Daniel led them into the conference room where a black suitcase sat on the table. When he opened it, their eyes widened at the stacks of cash inside. His father's voice trembled. "Is that?" $200,000, Daniel said evenly. "Exactly what you asked for." His mother's lip quivered. "We'll pay you back. We promise." He snapped the suitcase shut. "I don't want your promises." They exchanged bewildered looks. "Then what do you want?" his father asked quietly. Daniel's voice hardened. "I want you to take this money and disappear. Don't call me. Don't visit. Don't pretend we're a family anymore. This," he tapped the suitcase, "is the last mercy I'll ever show you." His mother's tears flowed freely. "Daniel, we were arrogant. We made mistakes, but we love you." He shook his head slowly. "No. You love your image, your parties, your spotlight. If you loved me or Lily, we wouldn't be standing here." His father sank into a chair, exhausted. "Son, we can fix this." Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "The day I knelt at your feet begging for Lily's life was the day you lost me." His words hung heavy in the air. Then he pointed toward the door. "Take the money and leave." His parents hesitated, then gathered the suitcase with trembling hands. As the door shut behind them, Daniel felt no victory, no peace, only emptiness. He sat alone, staring at the silent room, realizing revenge didn't heal. It only hollowed him further. That evening, Daniel sat in darkness when a soft knock echoed on his door. He opened it to find Emma standing there, hair tied back, eyes tired but calm. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, then stepped aside. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, no makeup, no pretense. "How's Lily?" she asked. "Fine," he said flatly. "She's in her room reading." Emma nodded, clasping her hands. "Daniel, I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything. I can't change what I did, but I still want to be part of Lily's life." He studied her face. She looked sincere, broken even, but the image of her and Trevor in their bed still burned in his mind. "You can see her," he said. "We'll make a schedule. But you and we're done." Emma swallowed hard, tears forming again. "I understand," she said softly. "Just remember I was drowning too. Your parents hated me, you were never home, and I felt like I didn't exist anymore. I'm not excusing it, Daniel, but I want you to know why I fell. Daniel's voice cracked with restrained anger. You had choices, Emma. Therapy. Talking. Ultimatums. But you chose betrayal. She looked down. I had no self-esteem left. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, heavy but strangely peaceful, like the end of a storm. Finally, Daniel gestured toward Lily's room. She's in there. Go see her. Emma nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks as she walked away. The sound of Lily's joyful cry, "Mommy," twisted Daniel's heart like a blade. From that day on, Emma and Daniel spoke only about Lily. She moved into a small apartment across town, visiting on weekends. The divorce came quietly, papers signed without ceremony. Daniel threw himself into his company again, expanding it into one of the most sought-after interior design firms in the city. Bitterness had once fueled him, but now it was purpose, Lily's future. Emma's parents, the true saviors of his family, moved closer. One sunny afternoon, Daniel handed them a set of house keys. You sold your home to save Lily, he said. Now it's yours again. Emma's father's eyes filled with tears. We didn't do it for thanks, son, he said. Daniel smiled faintly. Then think of it as me coming home. Life moved forward, even if the scars never vanished. Lily grew stronger, her laughter filling the once quiet home. She loved drawing, her small sketches covering the fridge, pictures of her family, complete with smiling stick figures. One afternoon, she walked up to Daniel, curiosity lighting her eyes. Daddy, why don't we see Grandma Linda and Grandpa Martin anymore? Daniel froze. He closed his folder and looked at her. They're busy, he said carefully. She frowned. But they used to come to parties. Did they do something bad? He hesitated, his throat tight. They weren't very nice when you were sick, he finally said. Maybe when you're older, I'll tell you more. Lily nodded seriously, then brightened. Can we go visit Grandma and Grandpa Spencer instead? Daniel smiled. Of course, sweetheart. Weeks turned to months. The divorce finalized, and Daniel settled into life as a single father. Some nights, he caught himself staring at old wedding photos. Emma's radiant smile, his hopeful eyes, relics of a life that once felt unbreakable. A pang of nostalgia would tighten his chest, but he knew those days were gone. Sometimes Emma texted him, "Can we talk?" She'd ask. His replies were short, only about Lily. She'd go quiet after that. Maybe she understood that forgiveness wasn't the same as forgetting. Maybe she was just learning to live with the ruins she'd made. Trevor disappeared from Daniel's world entirely. Rumor had it he moved to another city, buried in guilt and shame. Daniel never cared to confirm it. But in the quiet hours of the night, questions haunted him. Did I do the right thing cutting everyone off? Could I have forgiven Emma? Should I have saved my parents without shutting the door forever? The questions circled endlessly, like ghosts of choices that couldn't be undone. Yet every morning, when Lily ran into his arms, giggling, her lungs strong and her heart full, Daniel knew one thing for sure. She was the only piece of life he needed to protect. Everything else was noise. Time became Daniel's quiet healer. The bitterness that once gnawed at his chest slowly dissolved into something gentler, acceptance. He no longer woke up angry, only thoughtful. His days fell into a rhythm that finally felt stable, mornings with Lily before school, long work hours at his growing design firm, and quiet dinners in the soft glow of their small kitchen. Sometimes, at night, he'd scroll through old photos, Emma laughing at a picnic, his parents posing at a party, Lily as a toddler holding his finger. The memories still ached, but they no longer crushed him. He had stopped wishing for things to return to what they once were. Instead, he focused on what still remained. Lily's laughter had become his anchor, her joy the compass that pointed him home every day. One Saturday morning, Lily bounced into his office with her sketchbook. "Daddy, come look," she said, placing a drawing in his hands. It showed 3 houses, one large, one small, and one bright yellow in the center. Above them, she'd written, "Home is love, not size." Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," he said. Lily smiled proudly. Miss Helen says my drawings make people happy. They do, he whispered. Then she looked up at him with curious eyes. Daddy, do you still love Mommy? The question hit him softly but deep. He thought for a moment before answering. I care about her, he said gently. Just not the way I used to. Lily nodded slowly, then smiled again. That's okay. You can still be friends, right? Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe one day. That afternoon, as they walked by the park eating ice cream, Daniel realized how much lighter the world felt. The trees looked greener, the sky softer. Lily talked about her friends, her art, her dreams. I want to be a designer like you, she said. But maybe I'll design playgrounds instead of houses. Daniel chuckled. That sounds perfect. Then you can build them for me, she teased. He laughed, ruffling her hair. Deal. For the first time in years, laughter came without guilt. Life, it seemed, had quietly forgiven him even if others hadn't. He no longer saw himself as a man ruined by betrayal, but as someone rebuilt by love. And that realization was worth more than any revenge he had ever imagined. Months later, Daniel received a handwritten letter. The neat cursive was instantly familiar, his mother's. He hesitated before opening it. Inside, the message was short, we're sorry. We can't undo the pain we caused, but we've learned what truly matters. If you ever find it in your heart to forgive us, we'd be grateful just to hear your voice again. No excuses, no manipulation. Just remorse. Daniel sat for a long time staring at the words. Then he folded the letter carefully and placed it inside a drawer beside a framed photo of Lily. He didn't feel anger anymore, just the quiet peace that comes when you finally stop fighting ghosts. He wasn't ready to call them, but for the first time, he thought maybe one day he would. Work flourished again, but Daniel never let it consume him. He left the office early most evenings, picking Lily up from school, cooking dinner together, helping her paint on the weekends. His company had grown beyond what he'd dreamed, yet success meant nothing compared to the peace of hearing Lily laugh. One evening, while watching her color a canvas, he asked, "Why do you always draw sunshine?" She shrugged. "Because you can't stay sad when there's light." He smiled at her answer, realizing how much wisdom she carried in her tiny heart. She was his reminder that even broken stories could end beautifully if you chose to see the light instead of the cracks. A year later, at Lily's school art exhibition, Daniel stood proudly in front of her display. Her drawing showed a man and a little girl holding hands under a bright sky, with the caption, "My dad is my home." Teachers and parents stopped to admire it, praising her warmth and creativity. Daniel felt tears prick his eyes as Lily ran up to him, eyes gleaming. "Did you like it?" she asked breathlessly. "I love it," he said, hugging her tightly. Across the room, he noticed Emma watching them quietly. She smiled, a soft, remorseful smile that carried no bitterness. Daniel nodded once in acknowledgement. For the first time in years, they shared a silent peace, not as husband and wife, but as two parents who had finally learned to forgive. As time passed, forgiveness came naturally, not forced. Daniel didn't chase closure anymore, he lived it. His parents eventually reached out again through letters, and though he never replied, he didn't shut them out completely. Sometimes, on holidays, he'd send Lily's drawings to them. No words attached, just love passed through colors. It was his quiet way of saying, "I've moved on." Emma rebuilt her life too, working with children at an art center. She and Daniel stayed cordial, united by their love for Lily. And Lily, bright, fearless, full of life, became the living proof that even broken families can grow something beautiful from pain. Years later, as evening light spilled into the living room, Daniel sat by the window watching Lily, now a teenager, laughing with friends in the yard. The house was smaller than the one he'd once shared with Emma, but it was filled with warmth, drawings, and peace. He thought about all the storms that had passed, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, the cruel lessons that once felt unbearable. And yet, here he was, whole, alive, at peace. He whispered to himself, "Family isn't who never hurts you. It's who helps you heal." Outside, Lily waved at him through the window, and Daniel smiled. A man who had lost almost everything, only to realize he'd kept the one thing that mattered most.
Love.
Please like, comment, and do not forget to subscribe.